Hey everyone, this is going to be a different kind of video. I'm not actually going to be playing anything on this one. As you can already tell, I'm talking in this one. This one's going to be more of a general explanation about the markers in the game. So, markers, for those of you who don't know, are the little animations that come up that you hit when you're playing the game, right? So, basically, when you're first starting out the game, you kind of have to pick a marker that suits you. So a lot of people have questions whether which one's going to be the best one. Is there one marker that's better than another one? What's the difference between all these markers? And mainly what people end up doing is just going on YouTube and seeing what the top players play and just picking that one, right? Well, in reality, there's actually a lot of depth that goes into these markers, and it's really good to pick one that really suits you, because depending on what game you're coming from, if you're playing other rhythm games or if you've never played a rhythm game at all and this is your first one, the marker that you use is really important. It can really change the way you see the game and how you can enjoy the game. So I'm not going to go over the qualities of every single marker in the game because that would just take way too long, and I'm using Jubeat Plus as a guide for today. And this game only has so many markers. They've added way more markers into the arcade versions, so I'm not going to go over those. But what I am going to do is, there's actually a guide online that has all the information about markers and goes into details, specifically on their like their frame data, essentially, like their startups and which are slower than others and what each animation is, and some trivia about them and little other facts that you might want to know, and they're actually quite interesting. So I recommend looking at that if you really want to narrow down a new marker. But for this video, I'm just going to basically talk about the different types, what each different type does, and I'm going to kind of group them, and I'm going to group them here so you can see which markers are which type. So if you're playing UB Plus, you can kind of know which marker to go for depending on what you like. So first off, there's 6 types of markers, essentially. So there's cyber types, shutter types, gauge types, left and right types, instant types, and ubiqual types. So a lot of those, okay, I just said those names and you're like, well, what does that mean? So basically the way I got all this information from Japanese players that, they wrote these, they're the ones that wrote these guides, and I just translated it. But essentially they name these types after the first markers that appeared for most of them anyway. So for example, the cyber type, I'll start with that. So the marker that you're seeing right now, so this is called cyber. This is the first marker that was ever introduced in the game. It's the default marker for the first UB, right? So if you look at it, you can tell that the animation's coming from the center in the back, and then it's coming upwards, right? So it's kind of doing like one of these. So that is what defines a cyber type, essentially. So in order to get a perfect on this one, you have to wait for touch to come up and, you hit it, right? So the thing about these markers is, you're like, okay, so if there's multiple cyber types, then why don't I just play cyber, right? Or play this specific one? Well, the thing is that, kind of like in DDR or, Poppin' Music or any other rhythm game, 2DX, they have the high speed option, right? So the different markers, they actually come up at different speeds. So you're essentially, depending on which marker you choose, you're using a high speed mod. For lack of better terms, essentially is kind of what it is. So I'm going to go through the cyber markers in this game. So there's this one here. This is the normal default cyber. It's just normal speed. This is like the default speed mod, if you will, if you want to say that, right? Nope, not that one. This one here. So this was the flower. So flower, it's also a cyber type marker. As you can tell, it's just doing the same animation. It's just coming up from the back. But this one, it's a bit faster, obviously, right? So it's kind of like you're playing on 1.5, if that makes any sense. And then there's this marker here, this one here with this kanji. So this kanji actually just means touch. So it's just saying, touch. But this is also a cyber type. As you can see, it's coming from the back and then coming up. Perfect. So once it reaches the surface, you hit one. So this runs at a different speed than the flower and the regular cyber. And then we have this one here, the concierge marker. It's kind of like the nose and the mustache. So as you can see, this one's also a cyber type because the nose is coming straight from the back. And this one's actually pretty slow. So this would be it's slower than the normal cyber. So this is like you're playing on like 0.25 or 0.50. It's like if Cyber's too fast for you, but you really like that, you know, that coming from the back animation, then this one would be a good pick. Now, if this one's a little bit too slow, but you want something kind of faster, then we have this one here, which is the rolling cats. As you can see, same type of animation, cyber type. And then we have the owl, which is also, this one's actually fairly slow. See, same type of animation, coming from the back, cyber types. And then the fastest cyber type in the game, which I don't recommend you use, if you do use it, just be warned that it's very difficult, is the mirror ball. This marker, it's almost like a gimmick, it's a bit of a joke. You would only really use this if you're memorizing, you know, you're trying to memorize a chart and you want to do it on stealth or something. This would be good for that because there is some sort of thing coming up, but it's very hard to see in actual gameplay. Even me trying to hit it now, I have to really focus. Yeah, it's just like I'd have to focus on it. It's a really difficult cyber marker. Don't recommend. And then there's other cyber markers that were introduced as well later in later games, but again, they're not in Jubeat+, so I'm not going to go over those. Just check out that link in the description with the guide on all the markers up to date. So that's cyber markers, or cyber types. The next types that I'm going to go over that are in here are the shutter types. So these are probably the most popular markers that people use. These are the ones that have an animation that's closing in, right? So there's a bunch of different kind of shutter types in the game. There's actually, I want to say shutter types are probably the most common, definitely the most common types that are available. And for these, that are the ones that are in Jubeat+, it's this one here, the normal cyber. There's ice. Ice, it's a bit slower, so if normal cyber is too fast, or sorry, not cyber, if normal shutter is too fast for you, then ice might be better for you. There's also sand art. As you can see, this one's kind of closing in almost like a book almost. Let's see here. There we go. Sand art. And let's see, shutter types. I think those are oh yeah, this one here. This is the last one available. Is copious. Oops. Come on. There we go. Yeah. So just like with cyber types, how each different marker is almost like a different speed mod variant of that marker. It's the same thing for shutter types. Like, as you noticed, all the shutter types that I just tried, they all close in at different speeds. Granted, yeah, it's like, you know, if you're not experienced with rhythm games, you might not see the different speed right away, but they do close in at a different speed. So depending on what you're comfortable with reading, one might be more beneficial over the other. So if you try out shutter, right, and you're trying out this one here, and you know, you went online, you saw that this was like one of the most popular markers, you saw a lot of people using it, so you're just going to straight up assume, oh, this must be the best marker. But if you're just bad at it, you just might not be the type of person that can react to something closing in. You might be better off using something like, you know, a flower that comes in. So you really have to think about like what actually works for you and not really what other people are doing, because what's working for somebody else might not work for you. So that's anyway. So those are the shutter types. The next types I'm going to go over are, like, I call them the left and right types. These are types of markers that come in from, like, they come in from a left to back to the right, and then they kind of meet into the center. So an example of that one would be like this one here. So as you can see, you got one touch coming from the left, one touch coming from the right, and then they meet in the center, and that's when you wanna tap it. So like so. Different from shutter, like it's not really closing in, but it's kind of like meeting in the middle. Examples of this one are so this one, obviously the afro here. Target, you know, see, it's coming from the left corner to the left corner and the right corners. They're coming in together and they meet in the middle, and oof. Yikes. There we go. Yeah, so there's a target. I think egg is one of them. Is egg? Yeah, egg is one of them as well. Like, you know, you got the guy on the left, the guy on the right, and then they meet in the middle, and they break the egg, and then you get your chicken. So left, right. What are the left, right ones here? Yes, the soap bubble. So as you can see, same thing. That's coming from a left side and coming from the right side, and then they meet in the middle, and then you get your perfect. The cats, not the cats, the ferrets. Ferrets, you know, they're coming from the left, they go to the right, and then the middle touch pops up, and you get your perfect. I might actually argue that might be a gauge type, but I'll get to that. I'll get to that one in a bit. Yes, and then this one here. This might be the fastest left-right marker in the game, at least available in UB Plus anyway. It starts off in the top right corner, I believe. Yeah, top right corner, and then goes down to the bottom left, and then it, you know, once it reaches that bottom, you know, you get your perfect there. So these are interesting markers to use. I'm bad at them. I don't see a lot of people using these types. So if they work for you, then they were. Oh, sorry, I forgot one more. This one here. The color one here. Same thing. Starts in the middle. This one's actually kind of the opposite. Instead of starting in the left, right, and then meeting in the middle, it starts in the middle and then goes to the left, right. Perfect. Yeah, just like that. Yeah, you know, for me, like I said, they're not for me, but I have met a few people that do use some of them, especially the target. I think the target's the most popular of the left rights. This one here, yeah. A lot of people tend to like this one, but as you can see, I'm awful at these kind of markers. So yeah, so those are left rights. Next marker here, I'm going to go over are the gauge types. So gauge types are ones that fill in. These markers, from what I've been told, are good for people that come from rhythm games that have scrolling. I personally disagree because I play 2DX and DDR, and I'm awful at these kind of markers. But you know, to each their own, right? So gauge markers, you wait for it to fill up, and then you press it, and then examples of gauge markers in UB Plus are gauge, obviously. The volcano, as you can see, the volcano's kind of filling up, and then you press touch and it erupts. This is probably the slowest gauge marker in the game, I think. It's kind of oof. Yeah, see, I'm just awful at gauges. There is this one here, the touch blocks. I actually really like this one. If I was going to use any gauge marker, it would be this one, because if you, as you can see, the perfect is like a nice bright yellow. It's really good. And then the early is red, the good is blue, and then if I can get a great here. Want a great? Yeah, there we go. The great's green, so it's like very reminiscent of DDR, you know. I like that one a lot, actually. Yeah, you know, like the ferret one. People say the ferret one is, some say it's left right, but I think it's more of a gauge. I think it's just a gauge that's closing in from the left and the right. So you could say it's both. Then there's the ring one. I forgot, you know, the ring one. Oh yeah, the ring one's a gauge. But this one's like a weird gauge because it's filling in from the kind of filling in from the middle and coming out. Oof. Oh yeah, I'm awful at that one. Might even argue that that's a cyber type as well. I'll have to double check. Somebody double check the description in the guide in the description, and look for the yellow, the ring here. I think it's called Taurus. Look for Taurus and correct me if it's a cyber type or if it's listed as a gauge type. What's the other gauge types that are in this game? Yeah, banana. You know, it's kind of this is a bit of a silly gauge. It's a gauge type, but I also think it's a ubicle type, and I'll explain what a ubicle type is after. But as you can see, it comes down, fills in, and then you touch the little banana there. And then probably the most famous gauge type, it's the knit marker, because if you download UB Plus for the first time, it's going to automatically be on the knit. It's going to automatically be on the knit theme. And the knit theme uses this marker as the default. So a lot of people will just start playing with this. They don't even know you can change a marker. And if they don't like the gauge type, then and they don't know that there's other markers, they might not even want to play the game anymore. They might say, oh, I can't even do this. Like with me, for example, when I first started playing Jubeat+, this was the first marker I ever saw, and I couldn't do it at all. And then my friend was like, oh, there's other markers in the game, you gotta, try out something different. And then I found one that I liked. And then probably the funnest, the most unique gauge marker is this Jubeat one here. This one fills in pretty fast, and then when it fills in, you get like the Jubeat machine in the back.
Good. Perfect.
There we go.
Good. Perfect.
Yeah, this one's kind of cute. It's
Perfect.
kind of a unique one. And I think that's the last gauge. Yeah, that's the last gauge. Oh, no, one more. This one here, the block. So yeah, so this is a pretty slow.
Perfect.
This is a pretty slow one.
Perfect.
It comes in from the bottom, or it comes in from the top, sorry, and then
Perfect.
hits the bottom, and you
Perfect.
get your perfect. So, I mentioned the Jubeat type. Jubeat type. Here we go. So this is Jubeat. What makes Jubeat types unique is that, as you can see, it's coming from the bottom, or it's coming from the top and hitting the bottom. But it's not filling in like a gauge. What it's doing, it's coming down, and then it bounces into the middle, and then this one does the rotation, right?
Perfect.
So you hit the perfect when it bounces and does the rotation.
Perfect.
So this is a Jubeat type. In the later games that aren't on Jubeat+, the later markers that aren't included on Jubeat+, there's more of these types of markers that kind of have this bouncing animation. But if you go back to the banana one here, as you can see, it kind of does like bounce in a way. And then when it does that little bounce, that's when the word catch comes in and you hit the perfect thing. So some people might say that it's a Jubeat marker, but
Perfect.
this one's pretty unique.
Perfect.
A lot of people like it. It does have its negative aspects about it, but again, you can check that link in the description and read up on it, and yeah, there'll be more information there. So we went over Cyber, went over Shutter, went over Gauge, and Jubeat. So, and left right. So I think there's few more. I think which ones? Oh, there's the Ripple type. So this is the Ripples type. So Ripple types are basically markers that close in, right? So it's like a door almost. The reason they're called Ripples is because this marker is just called Ripples. It's the default marker that was introduced in Jubeat Ripples.
Good.
So as you can see, you have the top and you have the bottom, and then it
Perfect.
closes.
Perfect.
It's different from left right. People might say, oh, but isn't that kind of like a left right thing because it's going in the thing? But the difference with Ripples and left right is that left right, for example, this kanji one, or not kanji one, sorry, the painting one here. See, it's going like a shoot, and then
Good. Perfect.
like that, right? Then you have the target one. Where are you? Target. See, it's doing like a and then meets in the middle there, right?
Good. Perfect.
There we go. But the Ripple markers are different. It's just like a closing door. So you can call them door markers, I guess, if that's easier for you to remember. I'm just going by what the Japanese players classified them as. I'm just reading what I've translated.
Perfect.
So there's ripples like that, and then there's this one here, which is basically, it's the same thing, but it's just instead of it being top to bottom, it's just left to right, and it closes.
Perfect. Good.
Come on.
Good.
Too early.
Perfect.
There we go.
Perfect.
Yeah, so I think in this game there's only I think that's the only type. Yeah. Yeah, and then okay, so went over what Cyber, Shutters, Jubeat, left, right, Ripples. So actually there's 7 types of markers. I missed a few. There's the ring marker here. So ring markers are ones that do a spinning circling like this, right? So
Perfect.
as you can see, when it does the circle, it closes in and you get your perfect, right? And Jubeat+, there's only 2 types of these kind of markers. It's this one here, and where are you? Oh, the stopwatch here. So the stopwatch, as you can see, like there's this bar on the top, and it's kind of doing one of these. Then when it hits 10,
Perfect.
So the bars are going this way, and then there's like a solid white line that's going this way. So it's like it's a circular motion.
Perfect.
and then you get your perfect. Right. Oh, sorry guys. Back for the Yubico ones. I missed one more Yubico type in this game. The ballerina. As you can see, it comes down and it's doing that bouncing motion.
Good.
So the bouncing motion,
Perfect. Perfect.
that would be the Yubico type.
Perfect. Perfect.
Alright, and the last types in the game, and it's personally the one that I use, these are the instant types. So what I mean by that is that instant types are ones where the whole square just lights up instantly. Where are you? Here we go. So I use firework. This is my main. As you can see, the square just lights up, and then you get a perfect when the little firework goes inside of the middle of this target here.
Perfect.
So these types are really, really useful. The big thing that makes them really useful is that because they instantly light up, you don't have to worry about when to hit, really. Like, you don't have to notice like you don't have to wait for something to close in or something to reach a thing. Yes, there is like a firework going into the circle, but you're not actually looking for that firework to go into the circle. You're just reacting to the timing of the song.
Perfect.
It's easier to see in motion, but when these type of markers, when they light up, you have the most time to react, essentially. So firework, this one for example, it's actually the slowest marker in the game. It gives you the most amount of time to react to it. So it's really good for beginners. I recommend, if you've never played Yubi before, this is the one you want to use. The only other instant type it's this one here, Bowler. As you can see, it's just like the whole thing just lights up, and then you hit when it you hit when the touch comes up. People say that this marker, it's like firework on like 0.5. It's just a little bit faster than firework. And then an honorable mention goes to this one that we talked before about the cyber type, concierge here. Some people say that it's like a cross between cyber and instant, because as you can see, it does light up in the flesh color instantly. But there is that cyber animation that comes in, that coming from the back, so that's why people will say that it's cyber. Yeah, so which one should you choose? Well, if you're a beginner and you've never played Jubeat before or any rhythm game before, I recommend this one. I recommend Firework. The reason is it's the slowest one. It gives you the most time to react to. As you can see, it's really nice. If I go into a song here, so if we go into this, let me turn this volume down here. Yeah, it just instantly lights up. So you just touch it, you have so much time to actually react just to this, It's really nice. If you choose a faster marker, maybe something like one of the faster gauge types, for example, if you're a beginner, it's going to be really hard for you to react to that right away, at least in my opinion. I'll do the same thing, but with flower, for example. A pretty quick marker here. See, it comes up much faster. Now for me, obviously I've been playing this game, so I can react to it pretty well, but for somebody that's just starting out, it might be a little bit tough. And then just for ha-has, I'll show the mirror ball one, and the mirror ball marker is just so incredibly fast. It's just the one that you would not want to use that one. And I know this video has been kind of me rambling on, and sorry if it's really hard to understand, but just go into that description and oof. Yeah, see, this one is just, I didn't even see that one. Yeah, see, it really does make all the difference. But yeah, like I said, in the description, there's a whole list. There's like a wiki, a Remy wiki page about the markers. Go down in there and check them out, read them up. If you have any questions, feel free to comment, and we can talk more about it in the comments, or we can reach out to me on Discord or something. We'll have way more. I'll have way more to say in that situation. But for now, yeah, I hope this was informative. I hope at least, you know, if anything, you know that there are different types of markers in the game, that each have different properties and each do different things, and are classified in such ways. So if you're, you know, if you're into left-right markers, you know, if you're into this one, but you just want something a little bit faster, you know, you got to find another left-right marker that suits you. You know, you don't want to go from this to a shutter type, because, you know, if you like this type, then don't go looking for another type. Just stay in your own type, you know. If you like gauge, you know, if you started off like many people that got UB plus and started with this one, you know, and they actually kind of got used to it, but they just wanted something a little bit different than, but the same kind of, you know, type, then, you know, why don't you try out like the falling blocks, you know, like it's the same kind of thing. It's just coming from the opposite direction, you know. Anyway, yeah, I hope it was informative. Sorry if I rambled on for too long, but anyway, you know, it is what it is. I'm not going to edit this anyway. It's just kind of more of a free talk type of video. And yeah, check out the description, read those, read the information on Remy Wiki, and I hope that you guys find a marker that suits you, and, you know, I hope you find something that can give you better scores. All right, thanks for listening.